They say the next World War will be fought over water. But today's guest isn't waiting for that time to arrive. He's already spent over a decade re-engineering how we value every single drop of water. We live in times where we waste water and simultaneously run out of it. Every day, billions of liters of wastewater disappear while communities, farms, and industries run dry.
Most people saw a crisis, but our guest saw a paradox. A paradox that he wanted to solve and solve badly. In 2010, he did something that many could only dream of but not dare to do. He traded a high-powered corporate suit for a mission to make India water positive. Since then, his organization, AquaKraft Group Ventures, has become a titan of sustainability and has harvested, saved, and recycled over 170 trillion liters of water across the country.
He isn't just a conservationist, he is a financial architect for the planet. He is the founder of Aquarium, the world's first digital water bank. By creating aqua credits, he has turned water saving into a verified and tradable currency. He has effectively put a currency sign next to every drop saved, becoming the fintech revolutionary of the environmental world.
He operates on a simple but revolutionary philosophy. Rainfall is seasonal, but sewage is perennial. His work proves that the future of water isn't in finding new resources, rather in how we track, value, and finance the resources that we already have. From receiving the President's Medallion from President Joe Biden to partnering with the United Nations and the Jal Shakti Ministry of India, his work proves that sustainability isn't just charity, it's the next big economic frontier. Please welcome to the podcast the man bringing water into the focus, Dr. Subramanya Kusnur. Good afternoon, Dr. Subramanya Kusnur.
Very good afternoon.
It's a great pleasure to bring you on a podcast, Fitonomics, and I'm sure we're going to have a very, very enlightening conversation today.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely, Dr. Kusnur. Really glad to have you here.
My pleasure.
We also read few of your works on water stewardship, and a particular interesting idea that we found is the water exchange system. Really keen on knowing more about it in depth.
Definitely.
So before we make a deep dive, we'd like to know more about you as an individual. How was your childhood? Where you grew up? I read that your father was a very senior member at the RBI.
Yes.
So then how did your life shape after that? And I also read that you were a member who helped in setting up the exchange commodities of India, right? Commodity exchange of India. So how did that journey bring you where you are?
Well, childhood was in Santa Cruz, stayed in Reserve Bank quarters. Father was a principal advisor in Reserve Bank of India. And of course, did my graduation in physics with specialization in electronic instrumentation and a post-graduation in computer software. In fact, we were one of the first 100 Microsoft certified COBOL programmers,
Okay.
which landed me a job in a subsidiary of Canara Bank called as CanBank Financial Services. And but from there, took on a keen interest in financial markets, pursued careers, and then joined Rolta, and then HSBC Capital Markets, and then worked with the first corporate bond platform known as Risk Express,
Okay.
and subsequently set up a R&D company which developed a database of its own, like IBM DB2 and Microsoft, and then set up the first mobile solutions company in India called as CSAM, promoted by a veteran telecom specialist, Sam Petroda, and then joined Financial Technologies Group and set up a risk management consulting firm, which essentially focused on providing financial risk management services to regulators across banking regulators, insurance regulators. And during that time was also a member of the team which was setting up the first multi-commodity exchange. And that's how the entire narrative has been. A very interesting journey, and had a versatile, knowingly, unknowingly, had a very strong versatile experience across financial services, bond platforms, and hardcore technology development, and being a part of the first mobile revolution, and then being part of a group which created the first commodity exchange. So a lot of firsts by other people, but very happy and proud to be a part of each one of them. And that's when a chance encounter with Dr. Kalam, who said that water is the most important commodity. and you need to focus on that. Was a turning point in my life and my career, which I thought was very, very compelling actually. And I was intrigued to see how we could develop interest around this. And whole idea was to create a water commodity exchange, but then that was far too fetched. And that's how we took interest into this. First, understanding how drinking water can be provided.
Right.
Then the journey took on to us to various other innovations and solutions. And today we stand nice and proud for having done some very interesting impact on the ground over the last 16 years, having traveled from Assam to Kanyakumari, personally more than 6,000 villages. And today is the 5,570th day that we have invested in
nice.
water. Me personally. And collectively, the team has invested more than 12 to 15,000 man days in trying to make people aware that water is very important.
Right.
And you need to respect it, you need to like it, and you need to manage it nicely.
Right.
Journey has been very, very interesting, full of challenges, full of tribulations, frustrations. But every morning, all of us get up and say that no, our mission and vision has to be accomplished, and we get on to it. So we've been able to address a lot of challenges, still a lot of unanswered questions. Every day is a new day. Every day is an interesting day. But while we go back, retire and go to bed, we are very, very satisfied that we are able to at least solve one puzzle of the entire complex maze which is there.
Right.
And slowly and steadily, after having focused on providing and demonstrating our vision of sustainability on the ground, we are now very happy and proud to have a lot of collaborators. And now we are trying to see how we can build a major revolution out of collective action across all stakeholders and try and ensure that the next generation which comes is not bereft of water.
That's a very good vision, actually.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing in such a great depth, Dr. Kusnur. So you also mentioned about Dr. Abdul Kalam acting as a spark which shifted your journey from finance to water. Can you share us about the conversation that you had with him?
So that was the time when he was co-authoring a book with Dr. Y.S. Rajan called as India 2020.
Okay.
I was introduced to him by Dr. P.V. Indiresan, who was former director of IIT Delhi. And that was a time when Dr. Kalam was driving a program called as providing urban amenities to rural areas, the Pura model, which essentially talked about bridging the divide between the urban amenities and the rural, berefts. So one of the key things which was there in this conversation was water. And Dr. Indiresan was a very passionate person as far as water was concerned. And his idea was that India has got so many bright minds, having led IITs in both in Madras and in Delhi. And he said there is a lot of capacity of innovation. So we're talking about innovation very strongly right now. But 15, 16 years ago, these were the people who wanted to build this thing. And Dr. Kalam's vision was to connect all the universities and build an India knowledge portal, which is a very, very interesting, and to a great extent they succeeded. So looking at this kind of a selfless, passionate this thing, and for a person who has led the space program of India,
Right.
for the person who has assumed the highest office in India, still thinks for a person on the ground in a rural area, his heart beats for India all the time. I mean, these are something which we have never seen in our professional career or in our normal life, day-to-day lives. So that was a major, major impact on me. And so you need that trigger at some point in time to tell you that, you also can make a small difference.
Right.
And that's what drove us. And that's how we built this entire ecosystem right now.
No, I'm sure you have not made a small difference. They've saved more than 170 trillion liters of water across India. So it's a very big difference.
Well, looking at the scale of the country, it is minuscule, but it is impactful. And, somebody around, just before we started this, they said you can't change the world, but build models that are sustainable and then can be benchmarked. After that, it's only flow of capital into these models to replicate it.
Right.
But today, nobody really knows what to do, where to put money.
Correct.
For instance, today also, a lot of ESG money, climate capital is chasing India, but totally clueless.
No projects.
No projects at all. So that's when I come to aquarium, I'll tell you why we are building this system layer. So, and it's a very, very, very vast task even now to get people, policy, and planet together. All three of them totally diverse, going in their own way.
True.
Hey, people, you can't control their mindsets. Policy is driven by populist measures and eco-political ideologies. Planet is nature. So everything is an uncertain story. In this, how you create a method to madness or how you put a layer of some sort of sanity is the first focus that we need to look at.
Right.
And that's what we started doing. And that's when we focus first on building our core solutions.
Right.
Ensure these solutions are implemented. Then ensure that they are monitored, they sustain. And then comes the next part, because you need to have something in your kitty to go and tell that I have done this, now this,
Right.
without doing anything. Like, and unfortunately, I have to make this statement, and I don't want to demean anybody, but a lot of discussion happens in conferences, round tables, discussion platforms. Has anybody gone to a village? When I was doing a presentation for CSR to a large corporate, the person on the other side of the table said that, okay, 4 strokes to a hand pump, water will come. I said, please try. There is no water. The first thing is to put water in the ground to get it out.
True.
So, like we talk in, our, though being a South Indian, I've always lived with Gujaratis, it's like, if you don't put paisa in an ATM, where will it come out from?
True.
So, input is very important. And cogent input is very important.
Right.
Because you put distorted input, what you'll get out is a completely disastrous output. So the same thing, if you put in chemicals into the ground, you're going to get out poison.
Yeah.
So what you put in is very, so it's going back to basics. What a grandmother taught.
Right.
That if I have to do, so water budgeting started in villages long back.
Right.
And the lady of the house was responsible to manage the water. If she did not, the blame would be on her. So now, of course, things have improved a lot, but earlier, girl child had to lose a lot of school days because they had to go to several sources of water. So access is very important.
I think even now that problem persists.
It does. But with a lot of this Jal Jeevan Mission schemes, pipe water schemes, a lot of things are addressed.
Right.
So this Har Ghar Nal scheme, has it like kind of had a good impact?
So at least the perspective towards access to water has changed today.
Right.
Har Ghar Nal, it's irrespective of the fact that whether you're getting 24/7 water or no, but the concept of putting a tap in every household itself is a dramatic story.
Right.
It was a very revolutionary activity. Yeah, not looking at politics, but what Prime Minister did in the first Swachh Bharat mission was totally radical. Nobody would have thought and said that, let's focus on toilets.
Yeah. In fact, I was surprised and happy because I couldn't imagine being the Prime Minister standing on Red Fort and talking about sanitation in my first speech as the Prime Minister.
Exactly. And if you know, that is the world's most impactful social transformation program. Today, people have given equal or more significance to having a toilet at home, especially for women and girls, more than anything else.
Right.
This was never a discussion point at all. Only men had toilets. So, women empowerment in its true sense comes from the fact that you provide basics what a woman needs today.
True.
Correct.
If you do not provide basics what a woman needs, she has to toil all the time. So, that was a very transformative activity. So, a lot of these things have happened. And as I told you, right from the time Nirmal Gaon, which was started way back in 2010, which transformed into Swachh Bharat Mission 1, Swachh Bharat Mission 2, Jal Jeevan Mission 1, Jal Jeevan Mission 2, has now, if you look at 2005, or 20 years before and where we are today, you can see a significant impact.
Right.
True.
So policies have been very, see at the end of the day, a lot of people end up saying that government karna chahiye. Water is a state subject. Government has to give. Everything else government has to give. Government is doing a phenomenal job. But a multi-stakeholder approach towards achieving development is something which has started coming right now.
Right.
And especially after CSR came in, corporates have started contributing because annual CSR budget is 40 to 45,000 crores, growing at a 15% compounded annual growth rate. That means every year you have around $3 to $5 billion non-public funds available for you to do development.
Right. In fact, you were talking about this multi-stakeholder system. So we were contemplating on the problem in India, right? So we kind of first figure out that is the debate always gets stuck between mismanagement and scarcity. So is it mismanagement? Is it scarcity? Like I'll just give a fact that India receives about 4,000 billion cubic meters of rain, right? It's enough for several times our population, and yet 600 million people are in extreme water stress. So what percentage of this problem can be given or associated with management issues, and what percentage are actual scarcities because of the way the rainfall is distributed or water bodies are distributed?
So I'll tell you, this is not just an India problem, it's a global problem.
Okay.
Everywhere there's enough and more water coming in. Okay, it could be either glaciers, it could be rains, it could be, converting water from the sea and so forth. But harvesting as a concept has been there right from beginning.
Right.
But the problem what happens is, as industrialization grew, the entire mismatch between what agriculture consumes 88% of water. Okay. Now there is no control over that at all. It's a populist activity. Yeah, and it's a populist activity, so people can't do anything. Every government, every state government has their own policies in terms of creating this thing. But at the end of the day, farmers are the biggest vote bank in the rural areas. So you will have to address that from a purely political, eco-political standpoint. Second thing is industries. When the rapid industrialization took place, the amount of water that has been consumed at that time, now all of them are very conscious and they're reporting to UN SDGs, UN Global CO water mandates, Indian sustainability mandates and standards are coming in right now. But the only compliance for the industry is the Pollution Control Board, which essentially talks about the COD and BOD that goes out into the after you use the water. There is no control over how much an industry should use, how much an individual should use. Is there a monitoring mechanism to do that? So we cannot call it mismanagement. It's an ecosystem sort of a aberration. Yeah, and getting everybody on a single platform to drive this activity is essentially what we are trying to do in a small way.
Right.
So that if we show impact in a small way, we can replicate this further. But this is the biggest challenge. So when we started our drinking water business, the first thing we said is that if there is no water, what should we do? Where will we treat? And will we get business in terms of putting others? We pioneered the first water ATM.
Okay.
By the first CSR from HPCL. It ran very well. And subsequently, we created a lot of these water ATMs. And then we created a pantry along with that. So we created a social product out of water. But if there is no water, what will you treat?
True.
So that's when we started saying that wherever we are implementing, we create a 500-meter radius for at least whenever the rain falls to get into it. So another interesting activity which the government says, Atal Bhujal Yojana. Catch the rain whenever it comes, wherever it comes and harvest it.
Okay.
Don't wait for the rain to come into a particular structure.
Okay.
You know that in this particular catchment area, rain is going to come. Try and build a structure which at least holds it, or at least the water seeps down and the groundwater level comes up.
True.
So these are things which take a lot of time to impact. Though there is an idea, there is a vision, but actual implementation and actual impact takes a lot of time.
Right.
So when we started doing these water ATMs, that's when in a few villages, people started saying that we have got toilets by the grace of Lord, but there's no water in the toilet.
Right.
That's when we innovated a biodigester, which when put below a toilet, doesn't require water for flushing. The fecal matter gets converted in liquid fertilizer and flows into the ground, recharging the groundwater.
Right.
The only water that is needed is to wash oneself, which is again treated and recycled back. This is how we started building water positive toilets, and during the COVID era, through CSR, we implemented it across cities. In fact, in one of the rural areas, we implemented bio toilets for women constables.
Okay.
If you go to rural police stations, that's another big problem. Interior tribal areas and all these areas. So that's where we started building these things. See, the whole idea of sustainability stemmed from the fact that you are not going to have a utopian structure that you will get water all the time. Only you have to treat it. There will be no water most of the times.
True.
So generating water was the biggest question for us.
Right.
If you do not have water, none of our toilets will work, none of our water ATMs will work, none of our drinking water systems will work. And typically what happens is that from the way water is distributed in India, it comes from a water source like a river or a lake. It comes and transports over 200-300 kilometers to a central water treatment plant, which is normally managed by a municipality or a municipal council. After that, then it is distributed to the end stakeholders. The amount of loss that happens from the source to the treatment plant to the end consumer is dramatically high.
In fact, Kaushal and I were wondering about this bio-toilet synergy that you told us about, right? So, we've heard that you have pioneered a technology called geo-soil filter, and then you also pioneered this biodegradable biodigesters, right? So, how can these kind of come together to form an ecosystem to help the rural areas kind of reduce their dependence on water, which they don't actually have in the first place? As you said, that agriculture consumes about 80% of our water resources, and a lot of agricultural land is drying up. So if we are able to, tech optimize this sector using such technologies, do you think it is a permanent solution, or it will take a lot of time to and a lot more effort to, reduce this crisis?
See, if you give access to water, so from a banking standpoint, having come from financial services, we call it water adequacy ratio.
Okay.
Like a capital adequacy ratio.
Okay.
We want every village to be adequately capitalized as far as water is concerned.
Okay.
So to answer this question, we've already started this process. This geo-soil filter, initially we were implementing only in industries, and now we have converted a model for villages, where we are aggregating a sewage of an entire village at a particular point, implementing a containerized sewage geo-soil filter, which functions on gravity, doesn't have chemicals, no O&M, no sludge, no foul smell, and recovers 97% water, totally disinfected, fit for groundwater recharge and agriculture. That means on an average, a village of say 200 people, we are able to generate 25,000 liter disinfected sewage every day for groundwater recharge and agriculture, irrespective of rain, at a generation coin price of 1 paisa. So when we said that we have to do so, we have now cracked this code, and this has been implemented in villages, and our focus is by 2030 we want to make Indian villages water positive.
Right.
What does this do? It enables water security in two forms. Groundwater recharge augments your groundwater table.
Right.
So the higher the groundwater table, negligible contamination as far as drinking water is concerned, you can pull it out and drink it. Second thing, use the water for agriculture and irrigation. That means instead of putting 1 crop or 2 crops, you can do 3 crops. And last but not the least, having powered agriculture, we are enabling food security.
Right.
So essentially, if we are enabling water security and food security, we are contributing directly to the GDP of the nation by enabling 85% of this country to flourish.
Right.
When the 85% of the country flourishes, their spending directly contributes to the economic growth of the country. And this is essentially what our idea is. And Punjab was once upon a net exporter of wheat. So we want each one of our farmlands and farmhouses, may it be Punjab, may it be Gujarat, may it be Kerala, may it be Karnataka, each one of them. I'll give you a very beautiful example of the work that is done in a place called as Shirpur in Dhule district in Maharashtra.
Okay.
So this is driven by Honorable Amrish Patel ji, who around 2 decades ago saw a severe drought condition in and around Shirpur and said that something needs to be done here. So he created phenomenal, effective water management practices, and most of the places they were not be able to even do one crop.
Right.
Now they're able to do three crops, and there's so much of water. There's biodiversity. There is fish culture happening, and the kind of bananas that are grown there and are exported are bigger than anything else. So what we're trying to say is that a vision of an individual can transform the entire area, not just in terms of water security, but in terms of economic growth and opportunities for most of them. So when you're growing so much,
Right.
you can create a rampant food processing industry around this. So we really don't need to go around and talk about several other activities.
Right.
We have got very rich soil. We've got very rich, agroclimatic conditions and palatable to different types of crops. So we can identify key crops, and then we can have global leadership in each one of them. Sugar, we are doing very well. Rice, we are doing very well. Wheat, we are doing very well. And a whole bunch of hydroponics that is happening right now. Organic, this thing. So it's unlimited.
And also, like when we're talking about rice, wheat, and sugarcane, these are very water intensive crops.
Exactly.
So most of the water is being used to produce these crops. Do you think it's a sustainable practice to keep on producing the same crops?
That's what we're trying to say. You go and do your own crops.
Right.
But be very careful in terms of how you drive this. Leverage a lot of data. And a lot of data is there with the government. NABARD has got a lot of data in terms of what you should crop.
Right.
If you're going to do the same thing, then you need to have a proper water stewardship program around that. That's what they're saying. If the western Maharashtra belt is full of a sugar kind of thing. But there's so much of sewage also generated in western Maharashtra. If we are able to recycle that sewage and use that treated sewage for cropping and agriculture, there'll be no mismatch at all.
Great.
Right.
So there need not be any change in cropping pattern at a large. You just need to.
Not necessarily, because it's a set business.
Okay.
If you look at it, last 4 to 5 decades, or maybe since the time of independence, we're talking about 7 decades, this entire ecosystem has already been developed. Right from growing, cropping, cutting, crushing, harvesting, taking it to a particular sugar factory, building this thing. So you cannot, what we are trying to say is that be as you are. Don't change anything. But change one single practice of managing water.
And what about the drought prone regions like, Kutch and Saurashtra? These places are inherently dry. They do not have water in the first place.
Right.
So they also, when there's no water, the sewage treatment, the generation of sewage is also very less.
Correct.
In terms of water.
Correct.
So how do you supply water to such areas?
So I'll give you a classic example of what happened in Latur
Okay.
around 12 years ago. There was a severe drought.
Right.
There was no water anywhere.
There was also water train. that was
Exactly. So that's when the concept of transporting water, and that's how the idea of the water bank started.
Okay.
What we said was, water deficit villages will borrow water from water positive villages and return that water after 3 years.
Right.
If they don't, then they'll have to pay for it. So what we said is replace currency with water and create a nationwide clearing and settlement program.
Right.
So if you don't have water, Cherrapunji, the highest rainfall.
True.
Yeah.
But it still has no water because the entire water flows down and the villages below get flooded and completely devastated.
Assam also.
If you do step harvesting, control that water, you can make economic sense out of that water. You can then sell that water. And in India, railways is the cheapest and the most effective way of transporting any commodity. Water at India is a commodity.
Right.
This also can, one 12-coach train driven once in a week can recharge a complete village in 3 months. Math is very simple.
Right.
Logic is very simple. But for somebody to do that, you face so much of resistance.
Right.
Anybody to take a decision. So you always require a progressive person, and our first idea wherever you go is to find that particular individual who will subscribe to our philosophy
Right.
and then try and catch hold of an influencer in that catchment area who will again send this. So it's a huge task. Technology, innovation, and solution is only a part of it. But if it doesn't see the light of the day, unfortunately, a lot of our institutions, NITs, IITs, have so much innovations happening, but none of them come to the day and get commercialized.
Right.
It takes a long time for it, a lot of resistance. And anybody who's trying to take a decision will not take a decision if it is not proven, not documented, and not defined. They'll say, why should I do this?
But you were speaking about this transfer of water from water positive cities or states to other places, right? But we see a lot of conflict between the states in terms of their shares over water bodies. For example, there's this conflict between Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. There are multiple conflicts going on, not only across India but with
Globally.
other countries as well, right? So in a state where these conflicts exist, how is it possible to concurrently have this system of efficient transfer between different localities or geographies?
I have suggested to government of Maharashtra that for every property that you hold in a rural area, there is something what is known as Satbara,
Right.
which is the property title of the whole thing.
Yeah. Wakalatnama, right?
No, Satbara, it's a property, index 2.
Okay.
Like in Bombay, if you have a flat, there's an index 2, which essentially, is a document which is registered with the registrar
Okay.
for the flat to be in your name.
Right.
Okay.
We said driving water rights, water ownership rights is the only way of resolving this problem.
Okay.
So every farmer should have a Satbara of water, saying that this year my groundwater table was this. I'm going to go into. So essentially, water accounting and budgeting, which is there historically in the government activities, but unfortunately that is not translated out into a system which can be monitored, evaluated, and sort of either incentivized or allow that to be offsetted. So essentially what happens is, till the time I don't define my rights over this particular table, the water in this ground is mine. I am responsible for it. Not in terms of ownership, but I am responsible to maintain, manage and operate it.
Judiciously use it.
Judiciously.
But the aquifers are interconnected, right?
See, water is a flowing activity.
Right.
You cannot control that. But everything has got a geographical boundary. Even if you go into the sea, there is a nautical boundary for everything. So, plus or minus 20%, at least you will have some sense of activity to manage it.
So we start somewhere.
We start somewhere. Otherwise, what will happen? Karnataka will say, oh, Tamil Nadu ka problem. Tamil Nadu will say, oh, Karnataka ka problem. Both of them are fighting in all the courts, right up to the Supreme Court. Everything is sub judice. Nobody can do anything. But what we say is that as individuals, as stakeholders, we need to take ownership. As I told you always, you cannot put everything on the government. Government tries to do its best, and it is. But until and unless the end consumer also scales up with a similar activity, and then there are, educating platforms, courts and everything to monitor whether each one of them is doing their duty or not.
Right.
Rather than right from defining whose water it is, that's a never-ending story.
So like one particular policy where we could actually see a convergence between 2 to 3 states regarding their management of the water body was the Ganga project, right? So because Ganga was highly polluted, so they had to do something to treat it immediately. So in your eyes, is that Namame Ganga project successful? Has it done as much as it was thought of, or has it achieved more, or is there much more that can be done? What's the real situation?
So Ganga in its own form, Namami Gange as a program was a very progressive activity. It still is.
Right.
But you should also look at the kind of input of people, population of people flocking Ganga. Okay, see,
Right.
the problem here is in our country, religion has got a different, connotation altogether. When I'm going into Ganga, if I have a certain do's and don'ts, I can do certain things. But beyond a point, when there is a religious congregation, when there is this thing, it's very difficult to control the input into the Ganga.
Like that is like not one of the biggest sources of pollutants. Like I was reading a study that said that most of the pollution is happening because like the patch where people, take dips and everything, that is very well managed. But what is happening is that the industrial regions that follow after that, all of them don't have sewage treatment plants and they directly throw it away into the Ganga. So even after the government kind of, punished them, penalized them, what they did was they changed the direction of their pipes. They took it a little further away and then again put it back into.
That's essentially the only solution to this entire activity. We were told to do some cleaning in Pune and in Godavari right now. We said decentralized systems.
Okay.
If you are having a central place, the stakeholders will find 10 different ways to again put the sewage back here. But if I'm arresting it at every particular location, wherever it is coming from,
Right.
then it becomes a different activity altogether. So there are a lot of challenges. Again, as I said, the perspective and the needed impact is driven with the ideology.
Right.
The implementation in this country is a huge scale. So that's why we again step back in every activity. We also try to get business in Namami Gange. We also try to do a lot of things around this. And with respect to all other technologies, we've seen conventional STPs, which are chemical driven, do not survive more than 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
So what happens is that if you're not using it continuously, if you're not putting adequate load into that activity, the treatment system itself becomes a source of contamination.
Okay.
So there needs to be a very holistic approach, and which World Bank is also now promoting heavily, is to use nature-based solutions, which have a limited impact on the ecology of the entire water body that you're trying to address.
Right.
So these are some things which are coming up, and policy-wise, these things will now take a greater shape. So the UNCEO water mandate has identified several water bodies across the world, and they're trying to take them as model interventions.
Right.
So these are some things which will drive everything. But at the scale that we have a Kumbh happening now in Nashik.
Yeah.
And it's exactly 12 days. For 12 days, the amount of sewage that is generated is more than any big municipal corporation in the country.
Right.
So there's a lot of focus in terms of addressing that in a different manner.
So like, do you have a mobile and scalable
Yes.
treatment option for
I
such
will tell you another biggest thing
events?
that we will have. Of course, all our sewage treatment systems can be implemented through a civil infrastructure. It can be implemented. It's modular.
Okay.
I can do from 500 liters per day to 500 million, 1000 million, whatever it is. It's scalable. It's modular. If there is a space constraint, we can go vertical.
Right.
Yeah, so there are multiple ways we can. You give me a space, you give me an inlet, a characteristic of a particular sewage, we will create a solution out of it. We will not say no to anything at all.
Right.
So that is essentially what we are trying to do, and this can be put on a trailer, on a 20 feet by 8 feet container or a 40 feet by 8 feet container. You can go there. Since it functions on gravity, I only require a half HP motor pump to incubate the pressure, which will then go through the entire sewage, soil filter, and what will come out is completely disinfected water. So our next narrative that we are trying to do is that a lot of these VLCC, the very large containers, they don't come directly up to the port.
Right.
They are just off sea, and then small these things come out. But these containers need to be cleaned. So we are now building a next innovation of putting a STP, containerized STP on a barge, which will go to the ship, which will clean the water, clean the ship, including oil and grease,
Okay.
will come through our system, and we'll give them back good water.
No.
Okay.
Nice.
With this, they are not polluting the ocean. The focus on maintaining the biodiversity of the ocean also maintains. This includes oil, grease, paint, everything.
Right.
And if the very large containers, we'll put an inbuilt sewage system in the container itself. So we are trying to protect the entire narrative, not just restricting to ground, but also to the sea, because biggest logistic and biggest trade happens to there. And to answer to another question of transportation of water, every country generates a lot of sewage.
Right.
But the Middle East is bereft of water. Replace oil with water, and you can create a global water trading platform, where you can generate. India is there, Mauritius is there, Sri Lanka is there.
Right.
You can treat this sewage, put them on containers, send it to the Middle East for groundwater recharge.
Okay.
And the more groundwater recharge you do, the more salinity you reduce. The salinity reduces, it becomes effective and applicable for agriculture. So today, where they don't have food security, they can look at food security in an eventual way.
Right.
So water is going to be a very important commodity going forward.
Okay.
And India has a very large coastline, like 11,000 kilometers of India is coastline. So we have access to the saline water, and surprisingly, more than 2/3 of our world is of water, and yet we face scarcity. So is there any technology that we can use, like Israel uses desalination technology to use ocean water and convert it into drinking water? So why aren't we going towards that route?
What we said is that there are three sources of water: ground, clouds, and sea. Okay, sea is very vast. Treating that water is energy intensive.
Okay.
And the water that comes out is dead water. There's no mineral, you have to remineralize it.
Okay.
And from our fabric, we said that let's address the ground and sea first. Ground and rain first. And then we'll get onto the sea.
Right.
Because this itself is a mammoth problem to look at. Desalination, there are a lot of players who are already providing solutions.
Right.
We have done something in terms of building a more energy efficient solution, but it needs to be tested and driven. But we say we already have enough and more on our hand right now. Let us look at India first. India, we have demonstrated sustainability on the ground today.
Right.
We want to take this made in India model, made in Bharat model right now, globally, and at least ensure. So US requires 1.3 trillion US dollars to augment its aging water infrastructure.
Okay.
So similarly, Africa is in a different scale altogether, and with the US aid stopping funding African nations, there has to be a complete innovative way of finding on how to do this. So Africa also is a big opportunity for us. Same is the case with the ASEAN countries. Malaysia gives water to Singapore, Singapore takes it back, and then you have Thailand, then you have Indonesia. They are all again agri-oriented countries. So challenges are there. So we essentially want to try and focus on one thing, is that first we'll produce water.
Right. So there's also this report that was generated by Niti Aayog. I think it was released in around 2018 or something like that. And the report had listed cities in India that were highly vulnerable to water crisis in the coming years. And like ever since the pandemic got over, we've seen some of those cities, actually facing crisis every summer.
Correct.
So one example is Bangalore.
Right.
And like last year, Bangalore situation was extremely bad. It continues to deteriorate every year. And I've heard that you had an opportunity to actually work for them and help them come up with a system. So can you tell us more about that?
So the same sewage treatment system, but I will beg to differ. 23, I think, was a very bad year for them.
Right.
And then 24 was also, not very good. But subsequently, they've taken up a lot of measures.
Okay.
And we see the focus of the administrative framework completely committed towards resolving the problem.
Okay.
And I think that has impacted very positively.
Right.
And they have enabled a lot of decentralized systems. Then the government took a decision that every housing society should have its own sewage treatment system.
Okay.
Then they have also done a lot of groundwater recharge. They've also done a lot of rejuvenation. But the scale is so high, I think probably in the next 1 or 2 years' time, we'll see this problem reduced to a dramatic level. So 2018, they had talked that from 2021 onwards, 19 cities will go out of water, which included Gurgaon, Pune, a lot of other cities, and each one of them has faced a problem on its own activity. But it's the will to resolve it is very important, and that requires very difficult decisions to be made at the policy level, at the pricing level.
Right.
Because in our country, people feel that water should be given free. It was a case till earlier, but now when you have distorted so much the groundwater table, if you still want to get it free, it's not going to be possible.
In fact, one of the surprising and astonishing facts that I read was that the agricultural water prices in a few regions have not changed since 1965.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when somebody asked us, why you're not working for agriculture? I said, we've just started. And that's where, we're working very closely with the India NPIM, which is a society created by the Ministry of Jal Shakti,
Okay.
which is focusing on participatory irrigation management. And they're doing a huge amount of, advocacy and capacity building amongst farmers on how to become self-regulators and resilient as far as water is concerned. See, what happens is that it's a multiple story. It's like in a complete automation industry, if something doesn't work, the hardware blames software, the software blames hardware.
Right.
But somebody has to fix both of them. Or somebody has to go and identify where exactly the problem is.
Right.
So for that, in our country, this cannot be changed by service providers like us, or you call Samaritans who are trying to do good very idealistically. That doesn't work.
Right.
It is the constituency of that particular sector, which are farmers. They themselves have to come up and say that there needs to be a regulation, there needs to be a distribution management, there needs to be a pricing activity. Because at the end of the day, a farmer will not subscribe, not farmer, it's a human mentality, will not subscribe to an activity until they see some benefit out of it.
Right.
Okay, now when this benefit is seen, it's a collective activity. So for instance, the command area development, which is called, is now taken a very strong approach towards modernization. They're building clusters of villages which put together collectively manage their own water resources, their own water budget, their own water activity. Okay. Here, these people can get up and say that, yes, we need to price water. Okay, water is not free perennially, but they will do that only if they benefit out of it.
Right.
So, the entire advocacy towards this and entire narrative building needs to be done at the constituency level of the farmers by building strong capacity into them and basically making them aware. What are the tools available to them to go beyond conventional, to break the glass ceiling, to think out of the box, and how better they can do.
So
Each one of them is holding land, each one of them holding this thing. It's the idea of sensitizing this particular constituency of people to adopt better practices. We're talking about regenerative agriculture and everybody talks about it. But what is it?
No, but that sounds like really good and it's a very good idea. But to people like us who haven't seen it happen on ground, it also feels like a utopia at times because it requires two things. First is education and upskilling, and second is capital.
Correct.
And there's a dearth of both because a lot of people are struggling to get basic education. How would they kind of get an education that, helps them develop skills specific to these technologies that can help them become self-sustainable? And the other part is, where do they get the capital from?
So you have enumerated the problem very crisply.
Okay.
You require a catalyst to identify the gaps in each one of the things you said. Education, capital, knowledge, efficiency, this thing. And unfortunately or fortunately, we've been doing that role. It takes a long time. It takes a long time for us to get people on a single platform to think alike. But somebody has to do it. And we cannot leave it halfway saying that, oh my God, this guy doesn't know anything, I'm not interested. So the amount of rambling that we have done around all these places, I will not call it selflessly, but non-monetarily, trying to get people across this activity, because for us, it is not about selling my STP or WTP. It's about building an ecosystem which thrives on water.
Right.
And if I have to build an ecosystem which thrives on water, I have to connect with every stakeholder.
Right. But have you trained any villagers?
Yes. So what we have done is that we have told them in their own way.
Okay.
You cannot use workshops, call them in different things, give them a presentation. That doesn't work.
Okay.
You have to actually go down and talk in their own language, with their own people. And fortunately, we have a very good administrative setup in this country. We have block development officers, we have agricultural officers, we have officers from NABARD. These people know the local problem. They know the local dialect, they know the local culture.
Right.
But if you have somebody else coming and talking to them, it's just a presentation, go by this thing. So we need to work along this system get these people first to subscribe to what we are saying. Then they would also want to see logically correct on their part also. They don't want to unnecessarily talk about this thing. So this is how we are trying to build up small, and that's where the Jal Pe Charcha program that we do is very, very localized. It's like sitting under a tree on a katta and talking to 5 farmers
Okay.
or talking to school principals.
Okay.
The advocacy that needs to be done cannot be done above the line. It's always below the line. So you need to get these key influencers of a local place. Like there is a police officer, there's a bank manager, there's a headmaster, then there's a panchayat people. So these are the people who need to be told. And believe you me, all of them are supremely well informed these days. Because of the penetration of data across, everybody is supremely well informed. So I'll give you a classic example of a village where we had gone to do CSR. He says, everybody comes to us, tell me what different you can give me. So you have to now play at that competition level also, saying that what we are offering differentiates from what you have been offered.
But like, has any of your projects seen development to a place where your involvement becomes zero after a time and it is completely handled
All
by
our
the
projects.
villagers? Okay.
We do not drive the narrative where all other companies, with all respect to them, function their balance sheets on O&M revenue. Our philosophy is that once we give, because a waterman of a village can train and treat our system.
Okay.
We don't want dependent on us at all, until unless there's a dramatic change. That also will not happen, because if there is rain and our system gets submerged, once the water recedes, next moment it can start.
Okay.
That is the beauty of our system. It doesn't require a minimum load for it to function.
Right.
So we are totally simple, and that's the reason that, and if you have to achieve scale, you cannot have a Jawar Rozgar Yojana, people of O&M guys sitting in every village and doing things. It doesn't work. It's about financing sustainability.
Right.
Financing sustainability doesn't happen by putting in capital to sustain the methodology. It happens by implementing a program which is then locally managed unless a big disaster happens.
Right.
So that's essentially we been sort of following right from the beginning, and that's how things are sustaining.
And another project of yours talks about drinking water technology. How different is it compared to the packaged water that is available outside?
Okay, so I'll give you one small statement before that. The rampant spread of COVID in India happened because excessive use of RO water.
Okay.
Reverse osmosis is a technology. It was good at the time it was implemented.
Okay.
It sucks all the minerals, makes it hungry, and removes all the resistance that a human being has to have with natural water.
Okay.
Reverse osmosis is a technology which is dependent on water, ends up wasting 1 liter of water for every liter it treats, heavy on O&M, and throws out poisonous sludge, which is environmentally dangerous. We've created a technology which works on gravity. That means you pump the water from the ground to an overhead tank. The 5 feet head that we get is enough for us to treat 5 to 10,000 liters every day without electricity, without wasting water, without maintenance, and no sludge.
Right.
And here the local village waterman, he has to only put on and put off. That's it. And you have to recharge the treatment protocol once in a year. And then after 7 years, you have to discard and get another one. But the discarded treatment protocol, the media, what we call, can be used as a coagulant in cement concrete mix.
Okay.
Which ensures circularity.
So the whole process is sustainable.
Yeah. Completely sustainable. So if the idea when we started this entire thing, so first 2 years we just rambled around 3 codes of conducts.
Right.
Every time we were doing something, there was an election and a code of conduct. But this gave us a very clear understanding of why the existing interventions have not sustained. So we went back to our drawing board and said that we will not do the same mistake as they do. We had access to technology from the US, and then we completely customized and indigenized it to Indian standards.
Okay.
That's how the entire learning curve happened. And today we can very strongly, if a village is given to us, we can make it very, very water positive, and give clean water. Unfortunately, because the Har Ghar Nal will be able to distribute the water also. Give water for sanitation, toilets at all places, schools, public health centers, community toilets at marketplaces, and we can make the village water positive.
Right.
And the other one which we spoke about also is the sewage treatment.
Yeah.
Right now, all the sewage is collected from each household and it's taken to the
So
municipality.
normally, if you go to any village, the sewage follows the national track and gets collected at one place.
Correct.
Like
Which
also
is a
there
public health risk.
There's a lot of leakage and that sewage is going into groundwater, right?
Correct. So leakage is there, but in villages, if you see, there's not much of this thing. A lot of the sewage which happens, washing clothes, washing vessels, not the black water, that goes directly into a soak pit. That also can be connected eventually. But a lot of this sewage or used water gets aggregated at one particular place, it gets masked, then mosquitoes breed, then it becomes a public health risk. So now what we are saying is that clear that every activity, every day what sewage is generated, treat it and leave it in the ground if you don't want to use it. So your groundwater table always is augmented.
So we don't need a new storage unit
Not
for
at all,
the
not
treated
at all.
water.
So the storage unit we will only create if they want to sell the water anywhere.
And the household becomes a unit of water recharge and using, right?
Whole village, for that matter. Whole village becomes a unit of recharge. And see, we are focused only on generating the water. Distributing that and that activity, we have not gone on that activity itself. That's the administration is very well, sort of powered to manage that, and they're doing it very well.
Okay.
Our idea is to generate water daily without rain.
Okay.
So nobody is without water. That is our first objective.
Right.
Once we do this, then if we need get on to the next layer of doing transmission, distribution, monitoring of water use and efficiency, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But first focus, what we have cracked, which nobody else has cracked, is generating water every day for groundwater recharge and agriculture, which says your drinking water is there, your agriculture is there, your economy is going on, there is food security, there is water security.
Right.
Makes sense.
So this is the entire work that's being done by your company, AquaKraft, right? Now, since you're from a finance background, you saw an inefficiency where others were still looking at it as a scarcity. So how did this background shape your belief that water needs a financial architecture, and that is why you actually also developed another company called Aquarium, right? It's the world's first digital water bank.
Absolutely.
So how did your experience with your finance background, right? Maybe setting up the Commodity Exchange of India, the other work that you did in banks, how did this fit into the Aquarium story?
So the whole idea was that the asset classes are multiple. You have equity, you have derivatives, you've got currency, you've got commodities.
Right.
But all these things are pointless without water. And investment in water, right from the day one when I started, we thought that this will be the most valuable asset. And going forward, I'm making this very bold statement because I want to be very open and extempore in terms of what is there in my mind, not dissuading anybody else. But water as an asset will be a better hedge to inflation than gold in the coming years. We are already seeing the energy and petrol going down the drain in terms of hedging, and the currency which was holding them. It could be petrodollars or anything else. There's a huge amount of distribution among them. But as far as water is concerned, everybody needs it. If you do not have water, there is no fossil fuel also.
Right.
So what I thought is that, and there's a very interesting synonym I gave a couple of months ago, is that you have a village, you have a district. Now, a mutual fund goes to that particular district and says, do SIP.
Right.
Every month you put 500 rupees and that money will be invested into the market. I've come up with an idea of a water mutual fund.
Okay.
Instead of putting into the SIP, augment your own water resources. You have generated more water than you need. You have water credits. Sell those credits, make non-public fund money and use it for your development.
But the challenge that I see in this proposition is the fact that we don't have an auditing mechanism, right? So you all have introduced the concept of a water balance
sheet. Let me just run you through the entire aquarium process, what we did.
Sure.
The initial idea was to transport water, when I said. But then that I saw is going to be a difficult activity. It's a mammoth task. And for a small company like us to go ahead and do that, I lose a lifetime out of this. As I mean, step back. And when the focus on sustainability and especially ESG reporting becoming mandatory and BRSR reporting mandatory, that time I said that, it's important for us to build a platform which essentially captures this in finite values, which is reported. Today is just a reported number, though complete respect for all the kind of reporting that is happening, which has actually scaled up a lot of, environmental impact across us. But what we said is that 70% of ESG is water. So if we are able to quantify that in a finite manner, report becomes more accurate, and then overall impact on those data that is given from a policy standpoint becomes very good.
But you need metering and everything for that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one problem at a time.
Okay.
So we said that first, what we have to do, if we are building a digital water bank, it should follow all prudential norms of banking.
Okay.
Okay, which essentially says that onboarding, know your customer, get a key stakeholder. Because at the time when we started the bank, blockchain and cryptos were in a huge demand, went up peak and fell down bad, and there was a lot of regulatory challenges around that. We didn't want to get anywhere near that. We were saying is that you open up a digital water savings bank account, report your water use and efficiency data, basis which we created a comprehensive water audit framework like a cash audit framework.
Okay.
Like a CA would do it. We understood every element of that, got it in perspective with how water is dealt, and then we saw that there's very limited data available. So we decided there are two kinds of situations that happen in every activity. One where data is available, one where data is not available, and one where some data is available and some data is not available.
Right.
So in all this activity, we took the typical accounting logic. Because getting a utopian activity of having all data together and creating a digital water infrastructure is a far story ahead. So we said, let's do small things. We broke it down. We broke it down into small modules, small activities, debated, discussed, and did a very versatile water footprint assessment of very committed long-term projects of water sustainability.
Right.
Like the Art of Living Social Projects, driven by Shri Gurudev Ravi Shankarji. We did water audit for Bangalore International Airport Limited, one of the most sustainable airports. We did water audit for JSW's Dolvi plant here in Kapoli. Then we did water audit for the Shirpur pattern led by Amrish Bhai. Then we did water audit for Boson Whitewater, which is actually, responding to the Bangalore water crisis in a very great way.
Right.
And a whole bunch of these kind of people. So we had a set of and three other non-profits, Pragati Pratishthan here in Palghar, and a couple of others, and a whole bunch of corporates. So what we understood is that how they are accounting for water.
Right.
And each one of these audits had a precedence of an impact report. So while looking at what the impact was reported, validating and verifying that impact, we went very deep into it. Like for Sri Ravi Shankar's Art of Living Social Projects, we did the audit at Jalna,
Right.
where they had created recharge structures. So a lot of data was picked up from there. Then we identified the local rainfall data, the soil moisture, the air moisture, the percolation rate, the evaporation rate, and created an algorithm of ours, which gave weighted risk averages to each one of them,
Right.
and then iterated it several times to average it to a particular level so that what we get is relatively accurate.
Right.
We cannot say that we have got full accuracy. It is still time for that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of mechanisms in which we can do. There is interacting with local beneficiaries, identifying, there's a lot of secondary data also available as far as groundwater is concerned. So India has got one of the fantastic data. Whatever people would say, we've got some phenomenal historical data with us for us to do and for apply statistical and stochastic models on that. So that gives a lot of intelligence. Now what is called as artificial intelligence, that was innate intelligence that we're doing in that. So it gave us a lot of strength in terms of talking about our audit framework.
Yeah. You also proposed one water sustainability score.
Exactly. So that is what we thought, that, as we said, we wanted to also get corporates to scale up in terms of doing this. Well, corporates today have a great responsibility. Apart from being sustainable and stewards of their own narrative within their organizations, they also have an extended environmental responsibility. They've got a social responsibility, CSR, and then they've got a sustainability focus as well. So we thought that these people will be the best for us to look at this activity. So sustainability score is essentially a denominator of your water sustainability on a scale from 1 to 100.
Okay.
So we're going to drive that next after we finish this. So what we thought, that every product should have the score for a consumer to make a sustainable driven conscious decision in which store to this thing. So one of the greatest things that will happen now, and which will challenge the tariffs which the Indian textile has against Bangladesh, will be the sustainability story. So we're trying to talk to a lot of these textile firms who are exporting and doing white labeling for others to try and adopt these practices, which will not only help them in terms of branding their products, but also help them in terms of the cost cutting.
But like, is there a body to go and verify these? Because what has happened a lot of times is, like, in the carbon markets also, projects start, they do good initially, but they end up way before their expected lifeline, and then there's no monitoring, nothing being done, but they still generate credits annually. So is there a system, centralized system, to kind of make sure it doesn't happen here?
So I wanted to come to this, and good you asked me this question. Carbon market has done phenomenally well in telling people that you are accountable for your environmental actions. Okay, right from the Kyoto Protocol till now, there has been a lot of development of the market, but unfortunately, it has been very fragmented.
Okay.
And there is no, as you rightly said, there's no central repository which is holding the data.
Right.
Right. So there are multiple, there are VERA standards, there are various other people with their accounting standards. Europe has got the most structured standard. And this is the question one gentleman asked me a few days ago: what do you mean by a water credit? I mean, water credit is for us an representation of ecological balance. We are not talking about anything. We are not talking about the entire footprint right from the time, I start from my house, go to my office, drive this thing. That is essentially, finally, we have to do that. Suppose, you have Lay's as a potato or Balaji wafer as a potato. Amount of water that is needed to generate the potato.
Right.
And the water content in the potato. And the packing that is used. What has been the water footprint used in terms of doing that packing, then distributing that. So that is the full water life cycle. But today there is no data available. So we said, let's start somewhere and start building that activity. So the first representation of a water credit is an ecological representation of your good behavior in water. Okay. Now, building this comprehensive water framework was very important for us. And we took it through this thing. So we have very eminent chartered accountants on our advisory council. Mr. Shailesh Haribhakti is there. He's contributed a lot in terms of how to drive this entire thing aligned to BRSR and various other reporting frameworks which are there. And we are very strongly promoting the fact that water data also should be reported. And water should be recognized as an asset on the balance sheet.
Right.
Because that's how you will unlock the economic value of water. So building this entire water audit framework was very important, which led to what is known as a water balance sheet. Now, what is a water balance sheet? Like a cash balance sheet, you have an opening balance, total amount of water that is there in your opening balance, vis-a-vis what is needed in that particular year, what is available, what is the source of water, how much is the utility giving you water, how much rainwater can you harvest, how much water can you recycle and reuse, and how much can you save. A composite of this builds an asset and a liability.
And is this also used for generating the WSS?
Exactly. Eventually, yes.
Okay.
So what happens is this defines your water positivity or your water deficit.
Okay.
Water positive balance sheets are issued water credits at 1000 liters per credit, and water deficit balance sheets can offset the deficit by buying these credits with a commitment that in the next 3 years they will be sustainable. So if you look at any chartered accountant's audit report, they will give you recommendations on how to be better next time. This is where the audit report gives you recommendations in terms of your water use and efficiency, in terms of your processes, in terms of your cultural activity, cultural behavior of water within your organization, in terms of changes of technology and various other factors,
Right.
which also includes automating yourself beyond SCADA. So as a corporate, why we took as corporate as a this thing, that if we are able to showcase, this can be done in a corporate. So if in a large corporate, like, I don't know, like the Tatas in Jamshedpur, if you're able to do that, that's equivalent to 10 villages.
Right.
So this is what we are looking at corporate stewardship to drive the emerging trends in water sustainability. Now, what is a water credit? You are water positive. But if you tomorrow want to say that you want to put it on Tata Motors, that every car that goes out, this is my commitment to water sustainability. That's where the score comes into the picture. The score is a percentage denominator of your water sustainability, derived out of a water audit, translating it to water credits and coming out into this.
Okay.
But if you are not water sustainable and you want to increase your water sustainability score till the time you are committing to sustainability, you can buy the credits and augment your score to an extent.
Right. So these credits have been generated.
Yeah.
Then where are these traded?
Okay. Now, this is essentially what we did. We wanted to first master the audit program, the footprint assessment program, the evaluation program. After having done it, we are still, sort of evolving out of it. I'm not saying that, but we have answers to a lot of questions right now. We can defend the credit today. We can defend our audit today.
Right.
We can defend our footprint assessment with all the logic behind. So that's one thing. And all these projects are listed under a registry on the Aquarium. So tomorrow, if somebody is coming in, they know that when these credits have been issued, for what it has been issued. So in a credit also, it is 1000 liters of water saved, harvested, conserved, or recycled. Going forward, we want to also showcase in that particular registry is that what is the percentage of each one of them,
Okay.
which has gone into credit. We are only talking about quantity right now. Quality we are not addressing now. Quality we'll take it up to the next level. First we have the quantity in place, then we go into the quality. So once this is done, this entire activity is done, then we have now issued over 7 million credits. Now this is the time for us to go out in the market and say that these are qualified cogent credits which have been issued. They are available for offset and trade. This is how we will ask the holders of the credit to reach out to their stakeholders, like their partners, their ancillary companies, their sort of traders and everybody, to come and sort of encourage this kind of thing. This for corporates is purely for offset. But for non-profits, it becomes a source of sustainable financing.
Okay.
And last but not the least, we've got an opinion that investments into water credits qualifies for CSR.
Okay.
So CSR is a big market again. So this is how we are trying to put a sort of a framework mechanism
Right.
in established processes and protocols and integrate into this to start looking at adoption in the first level. And once this is adopted, maintain a strong market mechanism for automatic price discovery, both for offset and for trade and for overall accounting. This is nothing else but an integrated water accounting mechanism. Today, all this thing lies on the balance sheets of the corporates. We are only trying to unlock the economic value of what is lying in the balance sheets, creating a credit and giving them a tradable asset.
But what happens is, let's say you issued credits for a particular water stewardship project. So that project worked for 1 year and you issued credits for that particular year. So I bought those credits because I had a negative water footprint and I wanted to offset it. So I bought it from you. Now I started trading it somewhere else. So
No.
When does that get killed?
The moment you buy it for offset, the credit retires.
Okay. So
And-
offset and trading are different.
Completely.
Okay.
So when a buyer comes,
Okay.
he is asked a question, whether you buying it for offset or for trade.
Right.
If it's for offset, the credit retires immediately.
Hmm.
And if it's for trade, then most of them would like to incentivize a good behavior. Suppose if a non-profit is doing some good work, if they've got credits and they want to support them. So this is the ideal way to support. We're just finalizing the entire mechanism of how CSR can be enabled into this.
Okay.
Because CSR requires a utilization certificate and it requires that the money should go to a non-profit. So we're just working on the entire system framework around that. And we've got very eminent people on our advisory board as in stakeholders. Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, who wrote the CSR law, is on our advisory board and is actively advising us on how to develop this. So we're having all these kind of people who are, we're trying to leverage the wisdom and experience of the people who have started these processes and trying to integrate them into these formalized processes. So CSR also has taken 11 years to evolve. So everything takes time. So we just want to see how we can tag along and ensure that the impact that is generated out of investments in water under CSR are denoted by this particular tool.
I wanted to clarify one more thing. As you said that the credits for offset, once they've been issued with regards to offset, they'll die immediately, right? Yeah. Now the credits that have been issued for trading purpose, what happens to them? Like they keep trading like a normal stock?
Credits are issued irrespective of offset or trade.
Okay.
Okay. But if somebody is coming to buy the credits as offset, then they get retired immediately. If they do not, then they are in circulation like a normal stock equity.
Okay.
They're completely trading as when they are.
So then they become a benchmark for the market value of those
Oh
credits?
yes, indeed.
Okay.
It's an automatic price discovery that happens on a continuous basis.
Right.
Market will be open from 10:30 to 4 o'clock every day. And like a typical market, we want to align with all the standard principles, policies, risk management techniques of existing market mechanisms.
Right.
And what we want to do, and that's essentially will be done on Aquadex, which is the trading platform,
Right.
trading and offset platform.
Right.
And why we want to give it an idea of an exchange is that somebody has to, any person who's coming in needs to understand that this is a vibrant market system. Okay. And another thing, what I want to just share is that there are a whole bunch of conventional water treatment plants which are guzzling energy today and are not throwing out the right kind of water, and that water is not used. And as you said, in Ganga and various other places, water is just going back to the groundwater table. We are now trying to help SMEs and corporates to transition from their existing conventional STPs to our nature-based solutions, by virtue of which they will save energy by 90%,
Okay.
operation cost by 95%, and recover 400% more water, thereby reducing their water bills by over 70%.
Right.
And these efficiency savings can be financed by a bank, which they can repay out of these efficiency savings. And the nature solution that we are providing will be free for them after 3 years, and they can use it for 15 years.
Right.
This is one part of it. Another part of it, like an IPO, we have already started enrolling qualified investors. And if there is a need, suppose there is a resort somewhere which says that I want to invest into a nature-based solution,
Right.
and the cost is say 4.5 lakh rupees, then we will invite qualified investors to invest into it,
Right.
so that the efficiency savings that happen, and then issue them credits for investing, and the efficiency savings that happen will augment the price of that particular credit.
Okay.
So we are functioning like a bank, where we are opening an account, understanding your water savings,
Right.
Creating an audit, issuing you credits, maintaining those credits, and offering for trade and offset on one side, and the other side, financing of grassroots level water infrastructure, transition from conventional STPs to nature-based solutions.
And once the project comes to an end, the credits that it was issued.
So again,
there
credits
also-
are issued.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to come and buy as offset, they can buy as offset. Otherwise, it continues to trade.
Okay, but then no new credits will be generated.
No.
Okay.
It will be only till the time the efficiency savings kicks in.
Okay.
Suppose we are saying 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years.
Okay.
Every time it happens, the amount of credits will be issued.
And you'll audit it every year to see how much
Yeah,
it has
yeah,
gone
yeah,
up
of course,
or down
of course,
and issue
of course.
credits accordingly.
So when you asked about the utopian thing, when we say that we don't want anybody to rely on us for sustainability, but water audit, like a cash audit, is an annual exercise.
Okay.
And that's how the entire, accounting, offsetting, the netting off, everything happens in that. So we are running nothing else but a water accounting firm under this.
Right.
The water accounting is very important. We finished this layer. Next layer, we talk about data, which I talked about these projects. So there is in industry some element of data that is available. But a lot of people are talking about smart metering, IoTs. But smart metering, smart meters cost anywhere between 15,000 to 18,000 rupees per meter. Here, we have partnered with a very interesting firm which does a lot of metering for gas companies. And we are trying to come out with meters at absolutely reasonable cost,
Okay.
with limited technology, with only data coming from there onto our platform, with a very defined data activity. This company has been experienced for the last 30 years in gas metering.
Okay.
And we worked out a very interesting model along with them. And going forward, we want to address that issue also.
Okay.
Because we cannot use the new age smart meters to do it. It is economically not possible for anybody to do this.
Right.
Third thing is the overall cost of storing the data, the cost of storing the cloud data. So when somebody asks what is the price of the price of the credit has got various connotations. Apart from just generating water,
Right.
storing that. So all the software companies or all the corporations are extensively using AI, extensively use this thing. One chat GPT costs around 200 liters water.
Like one prompt.
One prompt.
Okay.
One email costs around 70 to 75 liters of water.
Is it for maintaining those servers and cooling them?
Exactly.
Okay.
One, mobile search also costs extensively. So knowingly, unknowingly, we have a huge water footprint. But that water footprint to calculate, it will take a lot of time.
Right.
So we are asking corporates and stakeholders to come forward and voluntarily buy these water credits on our platform as commitment to voluntary offsetting their water footprint till the time it is eventually calculated and measured.
Right. Understood.
So this is how we are trying to drive the market. So everybody has to be conscious. It is not a market where it is driven by compliance or it is driven by this thing.
Right.
And it is not a water credit where we are evaluated the entire water footprint. We want to inculcate a sense of sustainability, but a human mindset will not do that until unless they are receiving some incentive. That's how this representation of ecological impact is what we have started with, and we'll go forward. Now, somebody would ask, there could be 100 people like this. Fortunately, we are the only ones today as of now, and I'm sure many will come, and we are open to competition. More competition, the better it is. But what we have done is that we have created a global water think tank, a non-profit water think tank, in partnership with the Center for Social Value Creation,
Okay.
the Robert H. Smith School of Business in the University of Maryland.
Okay.
So the Water Parliament is housed in the University of Maryland, and one of the key functions of the Water Parliament is to create a global water registry. So that is one of the challenges that we saw in carbon.
Okay.
It's a very so the entire market is very fragmented. It is very, very uncontrolled.
Each have their own different methodologies, valuation.
Right. So here we want to comment on standardization. What is your water footprint assessment mechanism? What is your water audit mechanism? What is your water credit pricing mechanism? What are your trading mechanisms? What are your risk management mechanisms? All these things.
Right.
We want multi-stakeholders to get together. We're going to be inviting 50 top universities and 50 top global MNCs, which have got a huge water footprint, to come together and build this together.
Right.
So this is how we want to build it. But while doing so, we want to build a complete global water registry, and we are using Microsoft Azure for this, both for our aquarium as well as for this thing. And it's a non-profit activity where we will ask people to contribute to building this registry only to maintain eventual sanity of accounting of water. And very unfortunate, because of the recent geopolitical tensions, we are seeing that water treatment plants have become vulnerable to these things. So again, we want to tell people that, don't centralize your risk. Decentralize it.
Right. Like an asset.
Like an asset. Water is an asset.
Right.
We want people, our entire focus and narrative is to treat people water as an asset.
True.
I'm investing into a gold ETF today. Invest into a water credit. This is your future.
Right.
So what we want all the stakeholders to understand that this is a financial asset. Our major focus is to unlock the economic value of water. So tomorrow somebody says, I've got so much groundwater, his water is valued at that much.
True.
So that's what we want to drive. And one of the key things we want to drive is water ownership rights, where, there could be a little disparity here and there, but accountability is fixed for managing that. Today, that is not there. Third thing is try and create very simple monitoring mechanisms, not advanced IoTs. Simple monitoring mechanisms. And in fact, in one place, we have made an analog water meter intelligent.
Okay.
So if that is also a possibility, and that is the innovation challenge we want to give to all our innovators in India. How can we make a very simple water meter which sustains for at least 5 years without maintenance? How it is electric proof, tamper proof, waterproof, flood proof. So that's another thing which we will do under the Water Parliament. But we have laid out the entire layers of the water ecosystem. First, we said, let us prove ourselves by showing sustainability on the ground, which we have done. Second thing, build a very innovative platform called as the Digital Water Bank. Third thing, create a comprehensive water audit framework. Get subscribers to take water credits. Now open it up for offset and trading.
Right.
Then drive the water sustainability score on one hand. On the other hand, build a comprehensive global water registry, which will create a taxonomy for every stakeholder across community, industry and country to start reporting their water data. And finally, our destination is to create a water reuse index for every country. And once the index is created, that index, we will then trade it on a derivative exchange as a risk managed product.
Okay.
Right.
Enabling comprehensive financing of water infrastructure.
That's such an in-depth and detailed
We have
discussion
got
on solution.
everything laid out, a strategy laid out, but we are picking small pieces, and the focus, everything is collective action.
Right.
Collaboration and collective action. We have done a particular this thing. In each phase that we have defined, or each component that we have defined, we want to invite subject matter specialists, we want to invite academics, we want to invite policy makers, everybody to help us strategize and strengthen that entire thing with a scope for further evolution.
Right.
Because this is another 10-year story. It takes a long time. It's taken 16 years. So we'll complete a silver jubilee. Finally, at that time, we will say we've achieved something. But we are very happy, very satisfied that our philosophies have been accepted beyond India. And we've been able to demonstrate not just impact, but also innovation at scale. And I think Lord Almighty is there right now, and we wish we get more strength, and with friends like you all who are ready to proliferate this thing. And in this entire narrative, if I have offended anybody, I'm very, very sorry, but it was just a passion, and it arises out of the need to do things. And we will be more than happy to be shown that if we are not doing it right, we'll take it very, very positively and very constructively. And as I tell my team, we need criticism more than appreciation.
Right.
Because that is something which will solidify the model. We're completely open to discussions. We're completely open to understanding or improving ourselves. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And for us, this is not a business.
Right.
This is our life.
Right. One quick rapid fire. So there's this character called Aquaman, right? He's a very famous fictional character, of course. He has a trident along with him, right? So both of us would not be wrong if we call you the Aquaman in front of us right now. So what would be the three prongs of your trident, like very quickly?
Three prongs of trident is reuse, recycle, and recharge.
Okay.
And that's the only thing.
Right.
Because if you don't do it, you don't have water. So this is essentially what we want. We want everybody to leverage the sewage that they are generating and generate water every day. Drinking water will be available. So reuse, recycle, and recharge.
Yeah.
These are three main things that we want to do. Don't call me any man. And we need an army of men, women, boys, and girls to achieve what we are trying to do. And that's why we want, I urge all of them to come and have a discussion. So, three main activities beyond the thing which I talked about. One, we are doing action through AquaKraft. We're building the systems through aquarium. And we are engaging in dialogue through water parliament. So, in all these three things, we invite everybody to come and join us in either dialogue or this thing. And we've got very interesting people in the water parliament. Eric Solem, who was a former Norwegian minister and the former executive director of UNEP, is there with us. Harold Chase, who is the global director for government affairs for NSF, is there. And Nima Farshi, who heads the Center for Social Value Creation, he has joined us. And we have a lot of other people joining us right now. So we want a lot of help in terms of people coming and talking about good practices, best practices, innovations, ideas, or even telling us to do course correction. And course correction is something which is going to be a very integral part of the way we move ahead.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we need some respect for what we have done till now. And we want people to only recognize what we have shown on the ground till now.
Right.
And our intent of putting method to madness in each one of those things and then creating an eventual idea. It's a collective, collaborative effort. We invite everybody to come and join us in this blue revolution, as we call it. And we're very proud to be in Bharat and take the Made in Bharat model global and show that like the International Solar Alliance, we want the Water Parliament to drive the narrative of global water sustainability from Bharat.
Yeah.
Nice. That's such an innovative solution for the water scarcity that the world faces, Dr. Subramanya.
We're trying to.
Sure. And this brings us to the end of the Fitonomics podcast, Dr. Subramanya. And before we close, can you share with us a project that is close to your heart? I mean, where you saw communities grow, thrive, and become self-sustainable?
So, I would basically want to not just talk about a project, the entire activity during COVID, in full lockdown, in complete movement control. Our team implemented 3 nameplate national projects under the CSR, procuring raw materials, manufacturing drinking water systems and toilets, and transporting across North India, Western India, and Eastern India. So this is something, what I tell people, it is not just technology resilience. The team that we have is a motley crew of people who, if you give them a project within 72 hours, will go anywhere in any part of the country, in any mode of transport, get it manufactured and implement it. So this is something which we all are very, very proud of. And my, urge to all of them is that when we are building these kind of businesses, it's very important to have a team which is also committed synonymously to your vision. And in our company, there is no hierarchy. Each one of us can talk to each other and anything. So the most important project that we have shown in terms of technology excellence and implementation program is the one in COVID. And another one, there was a cyclone that came in 2021 called a cyclone Nisarg.
Right.
And just 15 days before, through an individual social responsibility of a lady, we implemented a community toilet in Harihareshwar on the coast of Raigad.
Okay.
After that, a cyclone came, 85% of the village was vanished. But our toilet stood tall and actually worked in rehabilitation. So when we say it is not just about technology, it's about precision engineering and the passion of the people who put in there. So these are two things which I'm very proud of. So whatever we are building is not just sustainable, it is strong.
Right.
It is engineering wise very, very rich, and sustainability wise it is very, very efficient and impactful. So these two things are something which
Beautiful, Dr. Subramanya. Thank you so much for coming to the Fitonomics podcast.
thank you so much.
We're extremely grateful to have you with us.
Right.
And it has been an extremely enlightening session for us. And I'm sure all our viewers are also going to learn a lot about what crisis they are facing in a short time if no action is taken, and what is their responsibility, not just the idea to throw it around on the governments or the municipal bodies, but what is their responsibility, what stake do they hold in this entire crisis, and what can they do to contribute to ameliorating that situation.
Yeah, one thing I would urge every stakeholder to be a self-regulator on their own. Be very conscious about water, because if there is no water, there is nothing. So all of us become your own self-regulator in any shape or form.
Right.
Any information, any idea, any experience you want, we are always there. But let's make India water positive by 2030.
Yeah.